Hey again, everybody. Welcome back again to the KSR YouTube channel. Just wanted to say hi to all of our new subscribers, and I believe we just went over to the 10,000 subscriber mark when I am recording this video. So appreciate all you guys checking out our shop. And in our shop intro video, you guys heard me talk about a Viper that we crew chief in the Trans Am series. So this is the car. It's owned by a real good friend of mine named Lee Saunders out of Lakeland. And we have worked with Lee since, I believe, 2014 with this car, racing on and off in the Trans Am series. In 2015, we ran the full series, as many races as we could get to, and were able to win the championship in the Trans Am International, Trans Am 3 International, I believe is what they called it back then. But now they classify us in, it's called the Super GT class. But for now, let's get this thing out of the trailer and get it on the lift. All right, so we're up in the air, and I've already discovered a quick problem with this thing, just pulling one tire off. And what we do when we get this car in after an event, it goes in the lift, get it up in the air, all the wheels and tires come off. Brake inspection is the first thing we do. And with this one, I've already discovered that we got to change the rotors, because when we're looking around the rotor, you can still see the rotor has plenty of thickness left before it gets down to where there's nothing left on the face. But if you see, let's see if we can get it. Okay, yeah, there it is right there. So that crack that's right there, that's to the edge, the inside edge of the rotor. And then there's also another one right here to the outside of the rotor. If you see that on a rotor, the rotor's junk. So there's a little bit of what's called heat checking, which is normal, and you can kind of see it in the middle of the face of the rotor. But anything beyond, anything that goes to an edge, take the rotor off and throw it away, because you don't want the rotor exploding while you're at speed. This car at Daytona, I want to say it's about 186 miles an hour down the front straight going into the infield, and woeing it down repeatedly from that speed all the way down to, I think, about 50 miles an hour through turn one. We run the Rolex 24 course, so it's the 3.7 mile course that crosses the start finish line, turns into the infield, runs an extra mile through the infield, comes back out onto the big NASCAR track. And doing that repeatedly is obviously very hard on brakes, especially when you're 3,600 plus pounds. You can see it's still got plenty of pad life left in it, but the rotors just get super hot. Another thing we do when we get them in is we go through and pull all the rubber off of the grill screens and grass and all kinds of stuff. We'll deal with that more as we get there. With a Viper, One of the things we do track to track is change the camber. And Vipers are set up that in stock form they have an eccentric bolt here, but if you look, you can see this is a machined camber slug. It's got just a set position for each time you change them. This piece comes out, and then the holes are at different locations to give you different camber settings. So we do that front and rear. We go through, we drop the belly pan off and change all the fluids. This thing has a carbon clutch in it, and looks like we might need to see what's going on up in there. Another thing we change, these canards are adjustable, and so we loosen these bolts and we can play with the canard angles to try and get a little bit more downforce on them on the front and on the rear of the car. The rear wing is adjustable, so we can play with the angle of attack on that. All right, so under the hood of the Viper, it's mostly stock looking. The engine has been rebuilt by Aero race engines. It has a different camshaft in it, a little bit of a bump in compression, and their tuning program as well. We're still using a factory computer, and you can kind of see right there, 71.56. So that is the size of the restrictors that we run. And after every time, every session on track, we have to loosen all these bolts, pop the restrictors out, show them to the Trans Am tech officials, and they measure them, and then, you know, check and make sure that we're still legal. And usually that's really only after qualifying and after the race. They don't check us after all the practices. But the interior of the car, pretty stripped. Stock dash, roll cage, you know, interior window net. There is a panel that completely separates the, you know, the back of the back of the car from the front. All right, so in the back of the car, you can see the 27-gallon fuel cell, and that will just barely get us through a race at Daytona and Sebring. Typically, our races are all 100 miles long, but we run on track with the TA class, which is a much faster class, and they end up lapping us usually twice by the end of the race. So we usually will end up doing about 92 to 93 miles. And along with the fuel cell, we've got the cool shirt system. And what this does is it pumps ice water through these hoses, and then they connect to a special shirt that the driver wears. We also use those in our endurance racing cars. Our current, the 2019 rule package, you can see we've got weight stacked there, weight stacked over there, and lots of different weight bars here. We got 2 or 3 there, stacked there. We've got a larger battery in the car. Everything to try and get the car to make sure that it's 3,500 pounds at the end of the race. All of this weight, if you don't know, the weight and the restrictors, they try to maintain parity between a lot of different types of cars. So we race against race prepped Corvettes, GT3 Porsches. The new car for this year was a Jetta, but they're trying to maintain parity with the restrictors and with the weights. And the Vipers have always made good power, but so they just kept adding weight to us to try and slow us down with weight. Makes it really tough on all the consumables. You saw the brakes. Those rotors, I believe we put them on so we put those on for Road America. They've got 2 races on them. And those rotors, like the front rotors are definitely junk. I'll throw them both away. And then the rears likely will get another race or 2 out of those. So all part of the stuff we do for class racing. We have to maintain legality on the seats. The seat can't be more than, I believe, 5 years old. The fuel cell bladder has to come out every 3 years. There's a, you take all this apart, take it out of the car, and there's a Kevlar bladder in there that, you know, if the car ever gets crashed, it's puncture resistant. And our fire bottles have to be recerted every 2 years. You can kind of see down in there, we're good until 2021. We did it at the beginning of the 2019 season. For the Trans Am series, we actually run a data monitoring system that has cameras on it, and we have to turn in that data after qualifying in our race. All right, so one last thing before we close this video out. Another area that we have to make sure we comply with the Trans Am rules is our contingency decals. So at every race, a Trans Am official goes over and checks out to make sure we have all of the mandatory contingency decals on the car. If we do not have all of those, we can be penalized both with our driver points there that go towards the championship, and you know, they want to make sure that we are putting the decals on the car to give the contingency sponsors of the series, you know, their ink on the car. So Trans Am puts out a lot of media as far as they've got a big following on Facebook. Plus, there's actually a TV broadcast that's done usually at 4 to 5 races a year. And you know, these series that are these companies that support the series, you know, they deserve to have all their decals on the cars and stuff too. So some little ins and outs of doing some class racing with the Trans Am series. We've got a lot of work to do to this car. Like I was saying, it's typically 20 to 30 hours of prep between races, and that's without a transmission change, without a differential change. We changed the gear at a couple of tracks, which actually, to change the gear, we just changed the entire rear end assembly. And there's been a few times where we at the track have decided to change the rear end assembly in the car at the event. It's not nearly as easy as doing it as it is here in the shop, because you're on jack stands and you're in a garage with not all of your normal shop tools, and it's a little tough. So I think that's going to wrap it up for this video. Thanks again for checking out the channel. Please like and subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon so you will see when we release another video. All right, guys, we'll see you on the next one.